All right, it has been a while since we have done one of these. Exotic ideas keep getting better. I think people are getting better at making... Oh. Oh, okay, not all of them are going to be great, right? Oh. Welcome back to another TDT video. What we do in this series is we take exotic ideas from you all in the YouTube comment section, our Discord, as well as Patreon, and we feature them. We put a little bit of art to them and discuss them. I like to go into sort of the game design logic behind each of these here. All this art is either credited in the description down below or it's from another game. Please feel free to leave a comment down below if you can figure out where some of this art is from. Let's just jump straight into this here with a YouTube comment with the idea of the Web of Lies. This is from an exotic creator named Ape with a Shotgun. Gotta love that. Gotta love the on-the-noseness of this. And ironically, this exotic idea doesn't really play around aping or shotgunning. It's confusing. It's a strange world we live in. But the idea is actually really balanced. I quite like it. The idea is very simple. It's very Destiny-esque. It's just make enemies who are tethered, chain the tethered to nearby enemies. This is just to try to bolster already what we have. Something that, like I said, very Destiny-esque, taking something that is kind of good and adding another exotic on top of it to really play into this. This really solidifies, if you were to run this really solidifies the tether as a crowd control based tool. Obviously, the first thing that jumps into mind is Orpheus Rig, but this, I think, does a good enough job of diversifying it. I think the only thing you're really going to run into is like the Mobius Quiver might bump into this idea a little bit, because Mobius is obviously a little bit more spread out, which might be better off for something like this. But regardless, a fun idea and works well within the realm of Destiny. One of the things that I've noticed as we've continued to do this series is that exotic ideas continue to get better. In fact, if you go back and watch some of our older stuff, like you'll see that some of these ideas were not good, and we've gotten better at creating these ideas. I'm not sure if I've had anything to do with that, but I just want to take a moment before we get on to the rest of it to talk about some of these ideas and point out some of the failures that I've seen. This exotic idea is a kinetic slug shotgun. Now at face value, not too bad. Maybe we're competing with the chaperone a little bit, but the exotic trait is called double or nothing. While wager is active, refunding your super grants your next super cast greater resilience and damage. So obviously we're kind of missing some context clues, so the exotic intrinsic perk is called wager. When your super energy is full, long press reload to gamble half of your super energy for a significant damage increase with this weapon. Every kill has a chance to refund your super. Do we not see a problem with this idea? You want the low and the high to not be too separated out, and you want to make sure that they're still interesting. So you don't want it to be too narrow to where the really good, like the good thing that could happen isn't too crazy, and the bad thing that happened isn't too bad. You want it to stay close enough together so that it, stays relatively balanced, but not so close together that it's not as interesting. This is so widely spread apart because what you have here is effectively when you get your super, bonus damage to this weapon, and you might get 50% super energy back. At least that's how I'm reading it. I could be completely wrong, but holy crap, is that ridiculously strong. Not only that, but it also bumps in directly with Bungie's philosophy about randomness. The next idea from another Patreon supporter. I thought the Patreon people would be the people that had it all figured out. This idea is called I'm rubber, and the flavor text is your glue. So this is probably meant to be a joke. I really want to think that this is a joke, but experience and wisdom tells me otherwise. Body shots against you have a random chance to ricochet in the general direction of your assailant. When critically wounded, ricochet is more accurate and occurs more often. Now, again, I want to say that's a joke. I really do. But I've seen some stuff where people are 100% straight-faced and tell me one of the most broken ideas ever and do not see a problem with it. So allow me to take a moment to not only to appreciate the beautiful I'm rubber, you're glue, everything you say at me bounces off and goes right back to you bit, but also, if you are being serious, please think about what you're doing here. Try to think of, is there a risk reward associated with this, which I don't think there's a risk reward associated with it in this case. Shall we get on to the rest of the legitimate ideas? This exotic idea is an adaptive frame sniper rifle. The actual exotic name is something in another language. I'm pretty sure it's Swedish, of which I am violently American, so I don't even want to embarrass myself by attempting to read it because I will for sure slaughter it. The adaptive frame sniper has a built-in perk called explosive armaments. Hip firing this weapon after landing a precision kill allows you to fire a single seeking explosive bug, sort of like Colony, that will of course find a target and then detonate it. And then the rest of its perk, Vice Engineering, this weapon has dramatically increased handling stability, air accuracy, and aim assistance for a brief period of time after beginning to aim down the sights. It has a brief cooldown associated with it. My only concern with this, there's a little bit of extra text here, but my major concern with this is not actually the first part of the perk, because I actually think that perk could be relatively interesting. I think the way that you can make it work is whenever you get a headshot kill on a target, it gives you what's, at least code-wise, similar to something like the Void Buddy, the Child of the Old Gods, where it'll kind of hang out around with you, and then when you would, engage another target, it would seek them out and then detonate. Probably not enough for a kill, because that's a little free, it's a little too easy, at least in PvP, right? But, a decent amount of damage. It could be good for crowd control, which a sniper's not good at. Kind of does a good job of being a little bit of both a good for PvE and for PvP. The actual problem I have with this is the Vice Engineering, which grants that for free stability, in-air accuracy, aim assistance, and all that just for aiming down sights. I think that's the biggest problem. I'm not sure if this was meant to be like after a period of time it grants that, which makes a lot more sense, but there's literally no cost to this outside of just like don't continuously ADS over and over and over again because it has a cooldown, which really isn't much of a cost really on surface level. Not bad, could be pretty interesting. Next up, we have an exotic idea from our Patreon supporter, and by the way, if you would like a better chance I should say, of getting featured as an exotic idea, join us on Patreon. There's far fewer people there. I won't bore you with the rest of the sponsorship. This is from Dollinator9. This is an exotic idea that he wanted it actually to be a new stasis grenade, which I think is really cool. But obviously this is meant to be an exotic thing, so we'll look at it kind of in both lights, right? This is an exotic hunter gauntlet called the Cold Anticipation. It converts your stasis grenade into a stasis trip mine. When tripped, this grenade rapidly produces 3 large stasis crystals that shatters in the formation. It leaves behind a conic slowing field that slows much faster than a dusk field and lasts about 5 seconds. This actually is pretty cool. I think the major problem with this, ironically, is that the actual exotic of what it's trying to do, now I guess I should say, if this was an exotic, this would be fine. But if this were an actual grenade, which is what you said that you're kind of hoping this would be, I think this does too much because it not only is giving you a stasis crystal for free, which allows you to do a whole bunch of stuff with that, damage resistance, Whisper Shard for, grenade regen and all that other stuff, but also you're also doing a slowing and hopefully freezing thing, which could be very devastating. This is sort of like an all-in-one grenade, which would be too much. But the idea is definitely there, and I really like it. This next idea I was wildly interested in because this has a place in a lot of different games, and I'm surprised we haven't seen something like it. This exotic idea is called the Metronome. This exotic perk is called Lethal Tempo. Now, there's a lot to discuss here, the idea itself, but let me give you the short version. Basically, when you press the reload button, you're then put on what is essentially a miniature rhythm game where you'll see this bar come across, and if you can hit the reload button again when the bar is over the correct spot, you'll reload faster and maybe grant some type of bonus to the weapon. If you miss, then it's even slower than if you were to just let the bar go by and reload normally. The exotic perk plays into that, where after a successful reload you gain class ability charge. If you use your class ability, you gain faster reload, which is cool. I actually think the exotic perk could even play further into the idea of like maybe if you get it correct, then you'll get a slight period of bonus damage, assuming you got a kill previously or something along those lines. But yeah, this fantastic idea, and again, I'm surprised we don't have something like this, and we could even have this gun play a song like it would do like a beat, right? Something kind of like this. I think that would be kind of neat, don't you think? All right, and now for my exotic idea. Now, in episodes past, I've talked about mentioning an exotic idea of my own, and I wanted to get this on the table. I wanted this to be a little bit more open-ended and loose because, ironically, this came to me the night before in a dream. I wish I was making that up, but I literally dream in exotics sometimes. This was like something I don't even know. I'm like, wow, That's kind of cool. That could make a cool Destiny exotic. I'm not even sure what I would exactly call this yet because it's so fresh, but let me explain this exotic perk. What this would do is that it would fire a sort of like a wall, like a shrapnel wall in front of you that would linger for a little bit. So it's a shotgun. It's a precision frame shotgun that when you would fire it, it would put out this lingering flame wall. It doesn't block any bullets or anything like that. It just kind of like hovers in place before dissipating into ash. But if a target touches any of those, so just like, you know, you would normally shoot them with the shotgun, they'll actually take some bit of Scorch. This weapon itself doesn't deal that much damage, but rather what it does is it relies on the Scorch and the explosion, the ignition, to actually kill targets. Because it has a sort of lingering effect, you can actually put this sort of as like a defensive tool. If you've got somebody rushing you down, you can fire a shot off and let them linger there for a second. Not anything longer than like 2 seconds, and if they run into all of the shots, they'll explode into the ignition. But it's guaranteed not to kill a target unless you can land a significant portion of your pellets. So what we can do is we can actually push out the range of this thing really, really far, because again, unless you land enough Scorch to detonate a target, it's never going to kill. It's just going to be a mild amount of damage to a target. So this thing can actually have a decent amount of range. It's a defensive shotgun. It's exclusively defensive because this would be very hard to play around in the offensive area, because not only are you having to deal with the whole like scorching into the ignition thing, but it's not very consistent on damage. So if you do happen to slightly whiff, it's going to be very hard to follow up on it. I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was cool as hell. I could play all around this with the solar stuff, and I don't know, I could talk about it for a while, but I really liked it. Let me know what you guys think of my idea. Let me know what you think your favorite exotic idea was, and, you know, leave a comment down below of your own. Make sure you're subscribed. Bless your faces, and deuces.